And we are live yet again for another Author's Chat of the Week, and my co-host should be joining me moment. Invite. Until then. Oh wait, perfect. Oh.
Hello, hello. Really don't like the way they do this on iPhones.
I'm sorry. This is why I do Android. I don't know anything about iPhones at all.
I was on Android. I was an Android guy for years, and I was one of those obnoxious Android people too. Um, yeah, I had the very first Android phone ever. I had the T-Mobile. Uh, uh, God, what was it called? G1,
Wow.
and it was But when the 12 came out, Apple had fixed everything that I was complaining about, and also I use a Mac for writing, so it was just
there you
like,
go.
might as well.
See, I'm the opposite. I don't use Mac at all either, but I've heard through people like you that if you have one, you want the other, and because they just work better together. So again, that's very foreign to me, but that's cool. So you are an Apple user.
I am. It was a slow transition, but it finally happened.
I've never thought to ask another author what type of computer you use, because I wonder how many people now use Apple versus anything else. That would be an interesting poll.
It would be interesting. I think a lot of people, unless you're like a diehard Mac person or are like a big PC gamer, I think a lot of people are just going to Chromebooks, because if all you're doing is writing and doing email and stuff like that, like, why not spend, $600 on a computer than $1,200.
Very, very true. And I see comment chiming in saying I'm an Apple guy except for phones. Oh, interesting stuff. See, now learning all these things. I love learning things. Well, again, welcome today. And because you've never actually been one of my co-hosts for these things, what I'd like to do is let you start off by introducing yourself to the world, what you write, etc. And then I'll do the same. And then from there, we'll just go where the day takes us.
Sure. Well, it's funny. I've always said I write noir thrillers, but I have a feeling that the word noir is scaring people off. Like, I think that people aren't really sure what it means. They don't really kind of get it, and they think like I don't know, like Sin City or just black and white, and so I think. And my first novel is called Just. It was available in paperback and on Kindle. Right now, it's just on Kindle. I pulled the paperback because I'm doing a quick 2-year refresh on the editing and putting a new cover on it, and then I'm gonna move it over to Ingram Spark. But I've got that, and then I'm putting out Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey on Kindle Vella as a serialized attempt. And I'm not super thrilled about the Kindle Vella situation, but I'm going to finish it off, and then I'll leave it there for a little bit and pull it and put it as a full novel. And then my next project is my work in progress, which is called Bishop Church.
Okay. And is Bishop Church going to be an independent novel, or is it going to be a kickoff to a series?
So they all kind of live in the same universe. None of them are direct sequels to each other, but they all there's some character overlap and like minor character overlap and stuff. But the protagonists, the main characters, are different in all of them.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I like that. Well, I mean, it makes sense as an author. You develop and you create your own world, and that takes a lot of energy and effort. So why not live in it as long as you can?
Yeah. Well, and that there is a bit of that of just like laziness. Like, I've already done this, so let's just keep going, because I don't want to have to start. Fantasy and sci-fi get all all the credit for world building, but you got to do world building in any genre. And
Mhm.
once you have that built, you might as well hang out there.
Yeah, exactly. And I will admit that is true. As a fantasy author myself, I have that probably same mentality, and I have to remind myself that, like you said, world building and some of this other stuff is not just exclusive to sci-fi, fantasy, and all their subgenres.
Yeah.
Even if you're writing, any work of fiction, you're still building out a world. You're creating rules. You're letting people know what you want them to know about whatever it is. And so, as a thriller, I'm assuming most of yours, again, assumption, are set on Earth, like our world. But even still, you're creating, what you want people to experience out of Earth.
Absolutely, and it's a heightened version of Earth. It's like I said, my books are. I've historically referred to them as noir. They've got kind of a heightened sense of urban blight, a heightened sense of power and corruption, and there's a I would say a wider gap between the classes than exists, but that's probably not true at this point in society. But it's just everything's kind of turned up to 11, and it rains a lot, and
Fine. That is
yeah,
fine. No, and I think I hope that people aren't scared off by terms like noir. And there are so many descriptors for books and subgenres that may not be as familiar as others, but as a reader, I feel like it would be a good challenge to read outside what you think you enjoy, because you might find out you like something and you could be surprised, be it noir, be it like for me trying to do some of these descriptions of Noble Bright or Portal Fantasy. People are like, what are those things? And it's like, don't be afraid of them, enjoy
yeah,
them. This is what it means. Here's an educational thing. And you could be surprised, but you never know. That's
yeah.
just my personal opinion. But for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Katharine Wibell. I am an epic fantasy author. I have 3 series at the moment. They range from young adult, new adult, and the one you can never see in these things, my adult novella series. They all fall, like I said, in epic fantasy. My young adult is a multiverse, 12 magical worlds. So you're doing a lot of world jumping, but it's chock full of beast beings, mythological creatures from mythos all around, pulled from all around the world, because I love mythology. So that's a full fantasy right there, but there are 2 out at the moment. It starts with the 12 tasks. The third one will be released this year. I'm actually launching my first Kickstarter for the third book, The Underrealms, next week. So that's what day is this is January 17th. I have to remember what month I am. This is what happens. I have like writer brain and I go into my worlds and I forget where I am. But so that's an exciting project for me. My new adult Warshifter fantasy is called the Incarn Saga. There are 4 books. It's my only full complete series. It's Kingdom on the Verge of War, where both shapeshifters and humans have to decide if they can push aside their differences, unite, and fend off a greater threat. And my adult novellas are a dark twist of Norse mythology. There are 8 out at the moment. They will be probably around 16, and they're my only series at the moment that has begun to be released in audiobook form. Since I'm an indie author, you got to do everything yourself. And based on what you were saying, actually, turning back to you, is that it sounded like when you said Ingram Sparks and being able to have that managing of pulling off and doing a revamp of editing and cover design. So, assumably, are you indie as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, cool. So,
Yeah.
why did you decide, or did you choose that, or did it fall into your lap, or was like, how did that come to be? There you go.
So like when I started, my intention was to go traditional, and I did all the research on how to query, and I had a list of agents that I wanted to query, and I did pitch madness on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
But the problem was that so I have a hard time multitasking. Um, I know a lot of people that can work on multiple projects at a time, and it just, my brain has a hard time like shifting between things. And so I had Dark White done, had edited it.
I think I lost your volume for a second there. Hold on. You are silent in the moment. We will get there.
Not.
There you go. I can hear you again. Welcome back.
Am I back?
Oh, yeah, just a
Okay.
little bit. You keep
Yeah.
coming and going,
I
but
forgot to
yeah.
put on Do Not Disturb on my phone, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. You were talking about
So
dark web.
I was, yeah. So I was ready to query it and all that stuff, but that process takes a long time, and I had
Mm-hmm.
other things that I was working on that I wanted to get into. I wanted to get into Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. I had already started the thought process on Bishop Church. I had a horror thing that I had come up with that I would like to someday do, but like I had all these things I wanted to work on, and Dark White was just sitting there going, yeah, but you need to be paying attention to me, and you can't. And so
Yes.
eventually what I just decided, I'm going to put this out myself just to get it off my plate, like
Mm-hmm.
just to because as I started writing Malcolm Karma, and I was like, I'm proud of Dark White. I like it. I think it's a good story, and I think the writing is fine. But the more you do something, the better you get. And I was so much happier with the writing in Bishop Church, or not in Malcolm Karma, that I was just like, I don't even know if I want this to be like my debut, like, so
Huh.
so I was just like, I'm just going to self-publish it to get it off my plate. And so I put in the time. I designed my own cover, which I was really happy with. The reasons I'm changing it are numerous, but designed my own cover. I got someone to write a blurb for the back. I formatted the whole thing myself, did all the work, and put it out there, and felt really good about just having it like done. And then once I did that, I felt like this is fine. Like I sold books. People were, I don't have a ton of reviews on, again, like marketing it is really hard because I was leaning heavy into the noir
Mm-hmm.
thing. But I quickly was getting reviews online, and people were telling me that they read it in 2 sittings. And like, I was like, well, why put myself through the other when this is working just fine? And so that's when I dove full on into, I'm doing the indie author thing, and I'm really happy about that choice.
Well, good. And I was like, at any point, if as an indie author, you want to take your next work and query, you can. But
Right.
you can always become hybrid or whatnot. But yeah, as an indie author myself, I do like that ability to be in full control of my product, of the way it is. And when trends change, cover trends change a lot.
Yep.
You can easily come to take an update and adjust and continue to roll with wherever the trend's going. And
Yep.
you can tweak your book blurb or your categories and everything. And that's a
Yep.
little harder to do, I would assume, working, going through a bigger publishing house. But again, assumption, I am indie.
Right. Exactly. I do have like my next project, the project after Bishop Church, is kind of a different genre for me. It's a first person domestic thriller, and
Interesting.
that one I might end up trying to query.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be honest, even if I do, like, I'm not going to kill myself on it. I'm not going to spend years querying it, trying to, I'll give it a shot, see if anyone takes. And, if 6 months in nobody's interested, then I'll just go indie with that too. The only reason I would try the other way is just because it is a genre shift for me. And so I thought, what the heck, try something else with a genre shift. But like I said, I'm not married to it.
Would you ever consider doing a pen name for your different subgenres? Because again, all thriller it sounds like, but even within thriller, there are huge differences. So, would you ever consider doing a pen name just
I
because it
don't
is a
think
little different?
I don't think so. I think I think there are reasons to have pen names, but I don't think genre shifts are
Okay.
necessarily. I mean, I'm not here to judge anybody and what their choices are and why they make their choices. For me, I don't think a genre shift is a reason to change a pen name. I think readers are smart and savvy, and they can recognize a voice in writing. Um, and if you like an author's voice, then you'll probably like what they write, no matter what the genre is. And so, yeah, no, I don't think I would change. The only reason I would ever, I think, take a pen name is um, if I wrote like a romance like thing, like if I wanted to do a romance novella. I never will. Let me just say, I have so much
You
respect
say
for
this
romance
now.
writers. I have so much respect for romance writers. I can't do it. I feel icky doing when I'm writing it. I think, being a cis white male, like I just feel like I have this like, oh my god, I feel just icky, like very misogynistic when I'm writing. I can't even write. I'm not kidding here. I really struggle to write sex scenes in my own like thrillers,
Hmm.
and thrillers have them, and
Hmm.
um, and I've gotten to the point now where I've had a few people. Well, I've had one person say, if you want some help, send it over, and I'll like flesh out your you know
Little
your
ghost
spicy scene.
writing here just to help you out. But
Yeah,
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 no, I agree. I'm like, if I've considered, like, if I the most part would be under fantasy, especially epic fantasy. I don't necessarily see myself branching into something that's a little spicy or not, but if I branched off something that dramatic, I do think I would do a pen name just because it is so jarring, and that would be a lot. Yet all my pen names, I've seen authors do this, or would I think I would list them on my website so people can, find if they so
absolutely.
chose. I'm not going to like be super secretive about it, but it's just a way when people see the other name, they're like, okay, this is your sci-fi versus your epic fantasy, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
just an easy
exactly.
way to do it.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. I just also like, not that it has to be anything special, but I just don't see like Neil Christiansen as being a real like romance author name. Like, it's
You can't judge anything, but
and
yeah,
I
definitely a lot
look.
of romance writer pen names have a shtick. They have a vibe. Let's say a vibe, a good vibe.
Yeah, now, okay, I wasn't putting that together, but yeah, now that yeah, no, you never know what'll happen. I've got a lot of romance writer friends, and they're like,
Hmm.
Neil, like, write a few like quick off novellas that and put them out there and make some money while you're writing your like passion project stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I also like, if I'm gonna write anything, I want to put myself into it and really like. I don't want anything that I do to be like cheap or
Hmm.
pandering or anything like that. My writing, it definitely, I use tropes. I lean on tropes. You know but I try to avoid cliche, and I don't want anything to feel like I'm just doing it to pander to a specific audience. that
Yeah.
that to me, again, is just, it's not the kind of writer I want to be.
No, I understand. I absolutely understand. You want to be proud of whatever you put out there. And yeah, I mean, there are definitely certain genres, at least it feels, that are easier to sell than others. But if you're not passionate about writing that material, then don't go
Yeah,
and write that material unless that's really what you want to do. So you just have to
yeah.
be comfortable with whatever you write, no
Well,
matter what it is.
especially on TikTok and on Book Talk, like it's definitely like a struggle. I love it here, and I not going anywhere. I definitely like to be part of the community, but it's definitely like, the Book Talk is based around like romance and fantasy, and that's fine. Um, from the my understanding and the way I see it is like those genres built Book Talk, and they're entitled to, have that be the majority presence on the platform, I'm just always like needling away, just trying to find that smaller like thriller audience that is looking for titles on Book Talk.
I think that's there. It's one of those things is it takes a while to network and find other authors in your particular genre. And then as a sub community, you guys have to get together and figure out ways to promote each other and build word, spread the word about your genre. And then all of a sudden people will start thinking about it going forward. Book Talk, not just Book Talk Spicy, Book Talk
Yeah,
Fantasy, but Book Talk thrillers, Book
yeah,
Talk biographies, Book Talk whatever it is. But
yep,
there are people out there. But and then I mean there is definitely a hierarchy, but that
yeah.
doesn't mean it has
Hey,
to always be that way.
look, it's not just Book Talk. Let's be honest. Like romance is the number one genre of book, like period. Not just here, like in bookstores everywhere. Like that's just so it's not a surprise that it would dominate, in a book community. And again, I think that's great. I really do. Just always trying to find my spot.
Yep, and I see one of our comments down here saying fantasy rules. We do have fantasy followers right now, but again, that's the thing is you have to like when I joined this community, all I saw was spice
Yeah.
and all that. And it took me a while to find the fantasy group, and there is a lot of us. It just again, it's one of those one you train the algorithm, two you have to shout out aloud a lot
A
until
lot.
you're heard a
Yeah.
lot. Your
Yep.
voice gets sore a lot, but
Every time I make a video about my existential crisis about being a thriller writer on Book Talk, I get like one or two people in the comments saying, I like thrillers, I write thrillers, I read thrillers. And it's like, okay, yeah, I know we're out there. Like I do know that we're out there. It's just finding a way. I talked recently about like finding like a hashtag like Book Talk or Author Talk or any of those things like Thriller Talk. I know that that's like a thing, but it doesn't like it's not like working yet. I was like, should we have like it's a dark and stormy night talk, like some kind of with a TOK at the end to gather us together. Um,
I know there was a video trend. It's been a little while, so maybe it won't work. But the sound, I think it was from the Hunger Games of the whistling sound, and it was used to call out to something. You should do one. It'll be like,
find a
are there any?
sound.
Yep, yep. You should do one and see if you
Yes,
could. How many people joined into that little one and be like, yes, I'm a thriller person too.
yes, that is a brilliant idea. I'm writing that down actually.
Good.
Like
There you go. Free
find
one of the day.
find a sound. Yeah.
I I don't know how to search for the sound, but I know it's been around and used a lot
Find a
for that
sound.
kind of
That's
concept.
fantastic. So tell me in your
Whoop! I think I
experience,
lost
I'm sure you've
you back.
talked about this
Okay.
a million. Hello?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure you've done this a million times on your show, but just tell me, um, when you finish a story,
hmm
okay, do you put it in a drawer for a bit before you go to edit? Do you walk away? Do you forget about it?
Well, not intentionally, but the way I write, and the way I structure my just writing life, I guess I have to backpedal for a second. Thankfully, right now I am pushing to remain a full-time author slash artist, so I do have a full day to dedicate to my craft. With that said, mornings are writing new materials, afternoons are spent for anything from marketing, advertising, editing, formatting, etc., so on. With that said, the way I approach writing, I'm always writing 3 to 5 books ahead of where I'm about to publish. So putting something in the drawer, yes, it's because I've written through 12 of my novellas, though I only recently put out 8. So there is going to be a delay where it's like putting it finally goes through my rotations and it's time for me to get back to that book to start that editing. It does seem to be a little fresh in my mind, but it's not intentional. It's just the way I rotate through my work, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, no, it makes sense. But from a practical perspective, from the time you finish a first draft of something until the time you go back in and start editing it, and revising. You've got a block of time between those two things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just Malcolm Karma. I wrote it. It started out on Twitter. I had this thing I used to do when I would get writer's block, and I would go and I would just start writing a story, one tweet at a time. And I loved it because anyone can you can overcome it by saying, look, I only have to write 140. At the time, it was 140 characters. Now it's 280 or whatever. But it was like anyone can come up with 140 characters, right? So I can do this, and then now I just need 140 more characters. Now I just need 140 more characters, and so I would start building a story on Twitter as a way to like overcome writer's block, and I did it all the time. And this is one that just like caught, and so for like a long time, like chapters into the book, it was all just a Twitter feed.
Wow.
And then eventually it was like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. I'm writing like pages and I need to like break it up. And so I started like just posting it on my website, like first rough draft, no edit, anything. And I wrote the whole book that way. And I wrote the whole book on Twitter and then posting on my website. And it wasn't until last year, which was probably like, I mean, at this point, like years after I wrote it, that I decided to go back and like clean it and edit it and revise it. And so I've been doing it chapter by chapter, revising it. And I don't know if you have this experience, but for me, like if you gave me a test, like an English classroom test on dark white, I would fail that test. Like I don't know anything about that book anymore. Like I can't remember and I can't remember everything that happens. I can't remember what was in the final draft versus like draft 2. Like I can't. I would fail the test miserably. And so as I'm revising Malcolm Karma and putting it up, I'm really enjoying like reading the book. like oh, I wrote. So I was writing tonight before this, and I had posted a chapter and I was moving on to the next chapter. And I started, rewriting it because that's what I do. I print out everything, and then I open up drafts and I just start rewriting. And when something feels wrong, I go back and fix it, or if something, and I'm about 3 paragraphs in and I'm like, this doesn't make sense at all.
Oh no.
Like I am so confused based on the last chapter, like what is going on. So I stopped typing and I picked up the paper manuscript and I just started reading my book. And I got like through that chapter and into the next chapter, and all of a sudden it clicked and it made sense. And I realized, yes, I remember, like I don't remember doing it, but I'm confusing the audience here. I'm confusing the audience on purpose.
Successfully.
And then it's not like I'm going to confuse the audience on purpose and then just leave them hanging forever. Like the next chapter, I fix it. But I was just very impressed with myself.
I love that.
And I love those moments. I see TikTok sometimes about people who, reread their own work and hate it. And I have to say, I don't have that experience. And I think part of the reason is that, going back to that authenticity, it's that whole write the book you want to read. And so that's why I love being an indie author, and I love self-publishing, and I love this whole like dynamic, because I'm not writing to market. And I don't care, like, if you're a person who wants to write to market and your goal is to be a best-selling author, like, go at it. Like, God bless you. I hope you succeed. That's great. I don't write to market. I write the book I want to read. And as I go back and reread it and put it together, for the final version, I'm just really happy with it. And I
love that. I absolutely love that. No, I've had similar, I guess, experiences, kind of, now that I understand where you're coming from. But when I do go back and start editing after, whatever gap of time, sometimes it's a year and a half, other times almost 2 years before I pick up a book that I have written, just because the way I cycle through my work. And it can be a lot of fun to like read and be like, because you're almost just as entertained. I'll remember the highlights, the big points. Of course, I know where we're going with the story, but like the deep working through, because I'm actually converting some of my books that have been published now for a while into audiobooks. So I'm listening to files from the first time and like book one, and I'm like, oh, I like that. I forgot about that little subnote. Quickly write it, because I actually do need to use that in the next book, But it's entertaining of the way your brain works and what you remember, what you don't, and you can be thoroughly entertained with your own work.
Yeah, there's nothing like reading a paragraph or a sentence and being like, I wrote that? Really? Damn. Tell me about your audiobooks though. Now, are you narrating them?
Oh no, no. You now, for anybody who's listening and is curious about this, yes, as an author who's indie, you can record your own. That is an option. I'm not taking that option. I do not have that skill set of one, I'm not really great at doing multiple voices, but I'm also have no idea how to do the editing part of the sound editing. And I would just be so confused and not have no idea what to do. So I have gone out.
So easy. Like that part is so easy. I'm totally with you on the, because I have tried to. I try. So I have a podcast called "If They Don't Have Books," and that's fine and fun and happy, and me and my buddy Ben, we talk about writing. But before that, I tried to do a podcast for Dark White where the premise of it was supposed to be, this is like a DVD commentary on the book. Like you watch a movie and then at the end you can watch the DVD commentary. So this is going to be the DVD commentary on the book. So I'll read a chapter or a scene or whatever, and then I'll give commentary on it like afterwards. And I thought, this is a brilliant idea and I love it. And I still think it's a brilliant idea, except I can't read out loud. Like I can do it to my kids. Like we can sit down with Dr. Seuss, and I'll read that all day long. But man, I just find I like mess up. And I'm like, I wrote this. Come on, damn it! Like, why can't I read it? But yeah, I gave up after, I don't know, 10 episodes or something like that, because I was just like, I can't do this well. So I'm with you. Like if I was gonna do audiobooks, I would definitely have to pay someone.
Yeah, and there are different ways you can approach it. Like I go through Audible's backboard, so ACX, and your two choices if you're not doing it yourself are pay in full, which is expensive, but you have bigger cut of the proceeds of the profit, and then the other one is the 50-50 share for the set number of years, which I think is 7 at the moment, and then you get full profit afterwards of your cut, which is 40%, because authors make.
I was going to say 40, yeah.
Yeah, so 20% on a split, 40% is your cut. If you're paying in full, but yeah, so I'm kind of doing, because I have 3 different series, and I'm trying to do them all as fast as possible. So they are all being converted by different groups of people at the moment, and I'm trying everything. So one, I'm doing the 50-50. The other 2, I'm paying outright at the moment. I'm open to changing things up. I don't know, I'm new at this, so I've only had 2 released towards the end of last year. So again, still very new to the audiobook scene. And I'm also playing with different type of voice narrators, because I have a solid female for my young adult, a male for just the adult Vikings, and then a full voice cast for my shifters. So each character will have their own narrator.
Oh, you're doing a voice one. Jeez.
Yeah, so doing a little bit of everything, and just, it's one of those things. Throw a bunch of things at the wall, see what sticks.
Oh, absolutely.
Hopefully it all works.
You are a very ambitious woman. I have to say, I am impressed. That is, I would like to do an audiobook. I listen to more audiobooks than I read print books, and
I do
and
that a lot now.
a big part of that is time. Um,
Hmm.
I I have like I don't write full time. I still have a day job. I have I have 6 kids with 3 of them under 10 years old, and I just, yeah, I'm lucky if I have the energy. I keep a book next to my nightstand. I'm reading Stephen King fairy tale right now. I'm also have an indie book that I can't remember the name of right now.
It's okay. It's
Hold
okay.
on.
I'm bad with
Yeah,
titles. I'm bad with names. I'm bad.
yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
If you see her or something like that, it's a
Hmm.
spooky haunted house indie book that I have on Kindle that I'm reading. Um, by the time I get in bed, if I pick up a book, I'll be asleep in a page. So a lot of times I just default over to audiobooks and do it that way. And so being a avid audiobook consumer, I would love to do that for my stuff, but I'm not there yet.
Hey, that's I understand. I see a comment for you is saying, "Good for you writing when you're that busy." But yeah, I mean, it's amazing when like people like you inspire me because just because I'm fortunate at the moment, knock on wood, whatever, good juju that I can continue on as I am. But so many authors who write fantastic work are doing it between the times of getting off another job, sometimes multiple, having kids, doing all these things that involve life, and still being able to produce work is phenomenal.
It's when it becomes overwhelming, the writing is the first thing to get
Hmm.
sidelined.
Hmm.
And I had basically a whole year of that in 2022. I didn't get anything new written in 2022. I got a little, I worked on the podcast and I got a little bit of editing and stuff done, but new writing in 2022 was non-existent because I just didn't have the bandwidth for it. 2023 is starting out really well. I'm
Good.
really pumping out the Malcolm Karma chapters onto Kindle Vella. And like I said, I can't I have to get that done so that I can move on to Bishop Church. I
Hmm.
cannot do them both at the same time. My brain will
Understand?
not be able to hold both stories. But I have like I have like 6 chapters left to get up on Malcolm Karma. And then that'll be done, and I can just forget about it for a while and move over to Bishop Church, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to really digging in because whatever my new book is, that's my favorite book. And so,
It does feel like that. It does feel like that.
yeah.
But I'll admit, going back and just, reminiscing with some of my older works, I'm like, man, I like that one too. So again, you want to write what you enjoy. You want to love your stuff. So that's fantastic. Now, I don't do Kindle Vella at this moment in time. What is your experience at the moment? It sounded early on that you were like meh about it, but I've heard good things and I've heard, not so
Um,
great. It just depends on the person.
so not to go back to the same like horse, but I think that serialized fiction works best for romance.
Mhm.
Or at least it sells best for romance. I've had a lot of people talking about how they struggle with Kindle Vella for other genres. Um, I get very few readers. Um,
Hmm.
Not none. I think every chapter that's posted has at least one read, um, but very, very low numbers. I think Amazon came up with this as an idea. They launched it and then they immediately just abandoned it. And I don't know why they did it. I feel like they were trying to get ahead of something that then they decided wasn't happening, and so they didn't care. They certainly don't market it. They don't talk about it. They don't promote anything. You have to go to like a separate section of the Kindle app to get to it. You cannot do Kindle Vella on a Kindle.
I
Like
did not know
if
that.
you have a Kindle, you can't read Kindle Vella on that. It only works on the app or on the computer.
Interesting.
But really they want you reading it on your phone.
I gotcha.
Is what
Quick,
it's
quick
there for.
scrolling.
So I'm not a big fan of it for readers. One of the interesting things that they do is that's different from, say, publishing a novel on Kindle is Kindle Vella. Amazon will pay you bonuses every month for posting regularly, and then you get more for engagement. But if nobody reads your stuff and you post chapters and chapters and chapters, or what they call episodes and episodes and episodes every month, you'll get paid like 50, 60, $75 at the end of the month just for having posted, even though nobody read it. As if to say, we just want people to post, and we know that we're not doing anything. So authors are going to leave this platform unless we do something to keep them here. So let's just throw them some money just for posting. So I get paid every month from Kindle Vella, but it's not royalty money. If I click on royalties and look at like my lifetime royalties on Malcolm Karma, it's like $2. I've made maybe $200 on it. So but it's all just what they pay me in what they call bonuses for posting. I will not do it again,
Okay.
but
I'm wondering, when you were mentioning like it's heavy on romance, I'm wondering if that's kind of like the book talk community where, that's one of the first big ones that jumped on it. That's what it's become known for, and everybody else then has to go and scream loud.
from the very beginning, I saw sci-fi and thriller and stuff. I think that when it first launched, it was very much perceived like, people talk about self-published authors on Amazon as being like the slush pile. You hear people say that. Well, I think that the perception was Vella is the slush pile of the slush pile. And I think that romance readers really like just something quick that they can read. And because it's like the serialized platform, so it's you can't post more than 5,000 words in an episode. Like it's
Okay.
500 to 5,000 or something like that. And so I think that the readership, the demographic they're looking for that enjoys, steamy romance or something like that, they enjoy a quick read more than someone who necessarily wants to delve into like a world. And so I think that that's why it does well. Historically, obviously, most of the classic novels that we think of were actually published serially to begin with.
That is very true.
Which is why I was like, hey, like Sherlock Holmes was all serialized. Like, I write mystery thrillers. Let's hop on there, and like there should be an audience for that. But there's not. Which is why I say, like, I'm doing it to completion, but then I'll just pull it all down, format it for a book, and then I'll do that through Ingram Spark too. I'm not going to publish through KDP again after this. I'll do it all through Ingram Spark, just so there's the opportunity for wider distribution.
Yeah, fair.
And ownership of the ISBN and all of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't hate Kindle Vella, but it's definitely like, it's not for me. It's not for my readers.
That makes sense. I'm trying to think of like going back to everybody who's enjoyed it so far. I do think a lot of them, outside of maybe one, have all been romance. Anyway, so that is interesting. That point.
Again,
Which
romance is the
I haven't
number
tried it,
one
but
genre.
yeah,
romance is the number one genre in literature in America. So like, anyone who's gonna poo-poo that is just crazy, because that's what people enjoy reading. So like, embrace it or shut up.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I guess that's on one hand, yes, that's not the outcome you wanted for being on Vella. On the other hand, at least you tried it, and you're never going to question, should I have done it? So, you know, you can move on and get on, you're close to being done with this project and you can move on to the next one. So that's
the thing I do like about Vella and about serialized
mm-hmm.
writing. And this, when I wrote Malcolm Karma in the first place and was doing it on Twitter, and then I was doing it on my website, is when you start getting a readership, and fans that are talking to you about it, it motivates you to keep working, right? It has that pressure. So one of the things I've been thinking about for Bishop Church, I'm not going to be publishing it on Kindle Vella. It's not going to be serialized in that way. But one of the things I've been thinking about is, instead of doing beta read, or not beta readers, but instead of doing alpha readers and kind of what we all just call beta readers but aren't necessarily, I was thinking of doing one of those, what's it called, Substacks, right? And sending out, like, getting people on a mailing list and saying, once a week or so, I'm going to send out a chapter or a chapter and a half or 2 chapters of what I've gotten done, completely raw, completely unedited, like just rough draft, crap pile, rough draft. Send it out in a newsletter, and invite feedback through my website for people to be like, oh yeah, I read this and this is what I think is wrong, or this is what I think you messed up, or this is what I liked. And just kind of like have that feedback coming in as I'm, but it gives me that pressure of, I got to get a chapter done.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, since I'm not full-time writing this, it's easy to be like, I'll get to it tomorrow. But if you're like, oh, the newsletter goes out on Friday, I have to get something done, then
Motivation.
to pump it out, put it in a newsletter, send it out, say, hey, here's a chapter, here's 2 chapters, let me know what you think. And then to have that feedback when I go back to do the revision already there, dive into the revision, take in those comments, and then do your beta readers, then do your sensitivity readers, then, get that polish on it, but have feedback immediately, and also give yourself a deadline, which is something that indie authors don't really have.
And it's something that encourages people to join your newsletter, because they're going
to
be.
See?
I see that. I was like, wait, getting people. I see that.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
I see how it goes. No, I mean, that's a brilliant way to approach it. And but yeah, now with your talking about man behind the curtain and newsletters, with your newsletter, do you have a, what do they call them, an auto series, a welcome series of, like, you already preset, this is what everybody's standardly getting before they join the new stuff? And if so, it may be something you might want to do for this, so that everybody can actually have all the files. But I mean, at some point you want to make those edits and move on, but who knows?
Yeah. So the answer to that is,
and that's when we want to make those edits.
Set up a Substack a while ago, and I have done nothing with it. And okay. So I don't have a newsletter per se. And here's the thing: I joke that it's about getting people on the newsletter, but the fact of the matter is, everybody tells you need a newsletter. Everybody tells you, like, if you're on TikTok or Author Talk at all, you hear it a million times. Like, you need a newsletter, you need a newsletter, you need a newsletter. And I'm like, what am I going to say in the newsletter? Like, I've got nothing. I put all, like, my quirky insights on TikTok. Like, what am I going to put in the newsletter? And so I was really just racking my brain trying to think of what could I do for a newsletter. Everyone says you need a newsletter. And at the same time was, debating my feelings about Kindle Vella and thinking about, getting started back on Bishop Church. And they just kind of all came together. And I was like, oh, well, I'll do this. And it'll be reminiscent of the way I dealt with Malcolm Karma and writing it and posting it to the website. But it'll allow that feedback. Like, Malcolm Karma, like, I'm really bad at titles. Dark White had like 1 million titles forever, but it originally was just called The Chronicles of Gavin Gale. Gavin Gale's the protagonist. And then Malcolm Karma was just called Malcolm Karma, and I went on Twitter and I was like, somebody give me a title for this damn book. And one of my followers gave me Cold Turkey. So that's why it's Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. The other thing about Malcolm Karma is every character in Malcolm Karma is a person that I was following or friends with on Twitter. So they're all real names of people from from the writing community on Twitter. All of the characters, all of them. And then, yeah, so I was just like with Bishop Church, I'll just do the same thing. I'll just like dive in and like use the newsletter as my way of keeping myself honest, but also giving me a newsletter.
Yeah, and that's one of the hardest things is everybody tells you you need this and this and this and this, but at some point you're like, where's the time, where's the energy coming to do all this stuff, as well as write, as well as do our life, and as well as et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard, and so repurposing things, finding unique ways to, make it work smarter, not harder approach is always nice.
Yeah.
And I do like that kind of Substack idea. So good luck if you do end up doing it. I hope it works, and I'm curious. We'll have to.
Yeah. I'll have to ask you what you put in your newsletter because I other than that I've got nothing. But
I mean, I've done a little things, and I should break some more time to go back and do something new. But I have written a couple exclusive short stories that are only for newsletter followers. And what I also do is for the first couple chapters of each of my first books of series, offer those as well. So a new reader or someone who's interested in me but has not read my book can like get a little taste of it and decide if they want to then go purchase. I'm a series writer though, so.
And I need you to stop, okay? Because I just want to clarify something, okay?
Okay.
You're a fantasy author. So when you say short story, are you talking about 80,000 words?
No.
No. I cannot write short stories to save my life.
That's why I had to challenge myself.
Yeah, I sit down to write a short story and then I look at it and it's like, oh, I'm at 35,000 words. I guess this is going to be a novel. And I tried to fix this. About a year ago, less than a year ago, I used to host this thing on TikTok called Book Talk Writers Group. And so I would put up a prompt at the beginning of the week, like a line of dialogue or a first scene or a sentence in a scene or whatever. And then people could write 2,000 words, a 2,000 word story about that, submit it at my website. And then on Sundays, I would go and do a live and I would read every one that was submitted.
Cool. I like
and yeah, and we would do, conversations in the comments. If the person had 1,000, followers, I would invite them to the live and we could talk about it. And I really enjoyed doing it. But the secret reason I did it was I was trying to motivate myself to learn how to write a 2,000 word like story because I can't do it. Because I always submitted, or I always said I would submit and tried to submit. Hi, Mallory. She loved the writers group. I promise I'm trying to bring it back in February. MK is we're friends now, but but we met in my writers group, and so I'm hoping to bring that back. But the dirty little secret of that was that I needed something to try to force myself to write short form because I can't do it.
Yeah, and that was one of the things is my books I'm an epic fantasy, so I'm allowed to write big books to an extent. I did query the Gen Chronicles at one point, and the comments I got was the fact that my book was far too big for a young adult epic fantasy. You had to hit so many words or less, and I was a third longer, and I was not going to lose a third of my book. So, with that sense, I naturally write larger books. That's fine. But I did want to challenge myself to write smaller. I had to have like a succinct purpose of writing, a teeny short story for the reason, sat down, did it. So I have 2 of those, and again, my samples. But going back, I wanted to again challenge myself to write a little shorter, and that's why I chose to do a novella series for my Vikings, and again, just see, can I tell a full story in 10 to 11 chapters versus 44, 45? And it was a good writing challenge, and then I've enjoyed it. I still am more comfortable with larger books. I like reading larger books. I enjoy it. There's just so much to say and do when you're building these worlds, but sometimes it's fine to just challenge yourself to get outside the box.
Well, and as people on TikTok know, and certainly my readers know, but people on TikTok know, I'm wordy. I just go on and I have a hard time being concise. That's why I liked Twitter, because it taught you how to be concise. Like when I would write stuff for Twitter,
I'm bad at Twitter.
I would. Well, I was bad at Twitter in terms of like the way Twitter's supposed to be used. But when I used it for like writing, it would be great because I type what I had in my head and it would da 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 da, and then it would go into the red. And then I just start going through and snipping and pulling it back and pulling it back and pulling it back until the very last period popped in and was white. And if I couldn't fit that last period in, fine. Like I counted to win that I get all the words in. And sometimes I'd go in and switch out an ampersand instead of and. But it taught me how to take things and make them more concise. Mm-hmm. And as I'm editing Malcolm Karma right now, one of the things I'm finding is the things that I am changing the most are just, okay, I'm being really wordy here. Like, okay. I don't need to say that, like, you know, you don't need two adjectives in a row that mean the same thing. Like, you can cut that out. Mm-hmm. But even in my verbal, like, am I still talking?
I have a couple comments that popped up. One of them said, have either of us ever considered authoring RPG contents? No.
Yes.
I've not considered it.
I have thought about it many times. And actually, I wanted to go and I was interested in RPG like as the general umbrella, and I also had this like fantasy that I was going to learn to code, and I was going to make an old school 1980. I'm old. Okay, so I grew up on an Apple IIe, right? And I played all these like games that were just like text games, right? Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to write a novel that was like a choose your own adventure novel, but also like an RPG / text adventure game, and build the whole thing out and code it and everything. Now I'll probably just write the novel and stick it in chat GPT and let it do all that work, and you know we'll go from there. But yes, I have thought about that a million times.
Yep. So I have not, and it's something, you know, I'm always open to new ideas, but at some point I always have to say, finish the projects that I'm on. And at the moment I'm releasing 2 series simultaneously. Do not recommend. Do one at a time. But because I'm doing that format, I think I've maxed out on, you know, branching out projects, even though I have so many other stories in the back of my head being like wanting to be already put to paper and released, and unfortunate.
That's my big problem is I have all these branching out projects I want to do, and I don't know how to like not like give them space in my brain.
You need the horse blinders and be like,
yeah, I have, like I said, I've got all these projects that are like whirling in my head. I've got one podcast. I've got like I want to branch out and have a YouTube channel. I want to understand Instagram. I want to do all of these things. Like and then I sit down and I drink and I cry.
Well, I mean, for me, it's like there's always something new that I want to do or try. I am right now exclusive through Amazon. Down the line, I keep telling myself I pretty much made the decision, I just haven't done it yet, is I need to find the time to take my print books and make them wide on Ingram Sparks.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to keep all my ebooks at the moment through KDP just because that brings me the most money at the moment. When things change, that may change too. But yeah, you know, that's one of those projects that I would love to do, but I just don't have time for because I'm doing all the other things that, you know, there's so much time. So my big new thing this year is, let's see if I can do a Kickstarter launch. Let's see if we can get the book out.
Right.
Let's see if this works. And if this does, great. If not, at least I tried it. We can move on.
So I don't know how long you scheduled for this, but you mentioned this at the beginning of the show, and then I wanted to talk about it, and then we launched into everything. Tell me about your Kickstarter. What made you decide to do that? How did you what did you do to research and build that? And what does it take to do a Kickstarter, and how do you do that as an author?
Oh my God. So many questions. So little time. No, I never thought about it as a possibility until being on here, and one of my book talk buddies on this platform, his handle is AP Beswick. He writes dark fantasy. They're dark twists on British folklore, essentially. And he has, for his current series and what has got him very, very popular on this platform, is the series he's working on, and he launches each book and through Kickstarter. And so it was watching his successes and pretty much picking his brain constantly to the point of annoyance. Like, I'm sure he's like, please don't talk to me for another 3 months. Because right now he's in the middle of his own launch of his next book, and he's doing fabulous on Kickstarter. So if you need any pointers, check him out because he's doing all things right. But yeah, talking to him, basing off like his format and some other very successful authors who have been using it as a launch platform, it's taken me definitely a few months of preparation, and there is a lot more upfront investment because you have to have at least, your perks and bonuses because you have to offer something.
Right. So what are you offering?
For me, and this is the beginning for me, and once I have a basis of stuff, if I do this again for the same series, I can add on to it, but I'm offering things like signed copies. And you'll have signed copy of the print book, signed copy of the hardcover, signed copies of the whole series. Since I have a backlist, I have signed copies of my backlist as different levels and
so then you're just ordering those yourself and having them there as that you'll ship out yourself.
Mm-hmm. And so that's some of the stuff. I also, for the little things as well, I've hired some different artists to do character art because I know that's pretty popular in here. So those are at this tier you get character art of this character or bonus character art, bookmarks, stickers. These are just some of the ideas.
That's
having a map
lot
design.
Of work.
It is a lot of work.
God, you're crazy.
Overwhelming, a lot of work, but it was one of the things that I realized I needed to postpone a book release, which I was very unhappy about, but I wanted to do it justice. And it's a series that I don't run advertising for my books until I have at least 3. And the one I'm about to release is book 3. So it's the one that I marketed the least of that series. So it's a little known series, but I think it has a huge potential. So I wanted to do something big for this book release, and we shall see. So crossing fingers that it goes okay. I mean, the risks of a Kickstarter is if you don't hit your goal, you don't get any of the money. And so what the rule of thumb is when you're starting out, bid
Who
very
gets
low.
the money if you don't hit your goal?
I don't know. Good question. I don't know if no one gets charged.
They do.
Okay, then probably Kickstarter.
I've supported Kickstarters that did not happen, and
that feeds the beast. But that's one of those things is always, the concept of bidding low, hit the goal, but have stretch goals saying, hey, if for instance my goal is bid really low, it's $650, very low bid just to hit. But then I have a stretch goal saying, now if I hit $2,000, I'll be giving everybody from almost the base level up an extra perk. And so I'm encouraging people to continue to feed further up, and that's again following my friend AP Beswick on here. His release almost within the full, I would say, gave him a couple hours. He hit his minimum bid Right now, he's at least triple over, and he asked for 6,000 something. No, I don't know. Maybe I'm making him numbers, but like he's making, he's doing it very well for his, but he has a lot to offer, and he's done this a number of times, so he also has followers. So it's a new thing for me. We're just gonna see how it goes. It was a lot of effort. I hope it pans off, please. but that's just, again, it's one of those things. As an author, an indie author, you just try things, think outside of the box as much as possible, and hope for the best.
For the best. Well, it sounds like you're doing a great job. I'm heading in that direction. I'm working on it. I'm trying to, the one thing I'll say is everyone says back catalog is everything. Having oh my God, that's awful. I'm putting this back on. Having more books out is better. You want people to be able to go and see that you've got multiple things out. So, when Malcolm Karma is done and I can, condense it and make it a novel and put it out along with Dark White, and then Bishop Church comes out, that'll be 3. And then I'll feel good about that. I've got the 4th one lined up after that. I know, like, I've got probably 6 books, like, in mind, and it's just about getting them out. But I work, the couple minutes I have a day just to punch it out and punch what I can out, and when I start making enough money that I can put more time into it, that it becomes financially responsible to put more time into it, then we'll move in that direction. But it sounds like you've got that figured out, and I'm very happy for you, and I'm looking to follow in your footsteps.
I mean, regardless of how you approach writing and how you approach your publishing process, it always, at least for me, my experience, it took a long time, it felt like, to get traction. And even still, I don't feel like I should be where I should be at this point.
Mm-hmm. With
that said, I've, over the past couple years, I mean, ever since COVID happened, and I really invested trying to learn everything I knew I was, my gaps of knowledge, which were marketing, advertising, trying to do better on these social platforms. And that has helped me pick up speed at a exceedingly quicker pace than it had been up until then. So it takes time to have traction, no matter what. And I mean, as writers, writing takes time, editing takes time.
Yeah.
Smiling in front of people takes time.
But a book shouldn't cost any more than 99 cents. I'm just saying, like, why the hell is it so expensive?
Oh my goodness. I know. It's sometimes blows my mind, where I did have someone on one of my ads for my book say the book, which was $3 ebook, was too expensive. Can I just tell them what happens? On my ad. And I was like, no. Sorry. If you can't cough up $3 for something I spent years, because it was...
Yeah. You spend more than that on a cup of coffee that takes like 5 minutes to make. Like, come on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sometimes mortifying, but put everything in perspective. I mean, sometimes people just don't understand how much goes on behind the scenes to put out a book.
No. I refuse to give that argument credence. I don't. It's something else entirely. I'm not here to say what it is, but it's not that.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, because I want to make sure I do ask this question. What are some of the basics for people who are interested in following you? Obviously, you're on this platform. What other platforms are you on? I've heard you mention a couple. Do you have a website? What are some of the basics where people can find you, follow you, join your newsletter?
I have TikTok. I canceled my Twitter when it became a giant dumpster fire in the recent month. So I'm not on Twitter. I have a Facebook author page. I don't ever check it. So I'm here, and I have a website GavinGale.com, GavinGayle.com.
I'll put when I repurpose this on YouTube, I'll post all your links below so people can find you.
That's amazing. Yeah, I have GavinGale.com, and that's basically it. Like GavinGale.com, and here is where you get me. Excuse me.
The thing about being an author, less is more. It's like pick the thing you want to do and do it well. So,
yeah.
If you want to do a social and a newsletter, and that's it, just make sure you do well on that social and newsletter, so, whatever it is.
Like I said, I did start a Substack that I will be utilizing in the future. I think it's called It Was a Dark and Stormy Night or something like that. Like I can't remember at this point, but yeah, if you look for Neil Christiansen, I do have a Substack that I will be paying attention to sometime in the next 3 months.
Woo-hoo. Good goals to have. Yeah. Now I'm going to check in 3 months and ask you if you've kept your goals. Remember,
please
accountability.
Please, I need someone to keep me accountable because
accountability.
Yeah.
But that's great. And then one other thing I always like to ask, just to make sure I hit all the primary topics, is there anything that we did not talk about today so far that you want people to know about you, your work, whatnot? Anything you would want to cover? Any questions you want to make sure we...
No, and just I mentioned it in passing, but I do have a podcast that goes up sporadically. But it's called If They Don't Have Books. It's me and my friend B.A. Durham. He's a technical writer, which is a totally different kind. I mean, he also writes fiction, and we talk about writing fiction, but he has a interesting perspective because he is a technical writer by trade. And we talk about writing and writing related things, and sometimes not writing related things. And it's called If They Don't Have Books. And you can find it everywhere you find podcasts.
Fantastic. And again, I'll try to find that link and put it below for those who watch on YouTube. Yay! Yep. Well, thank you for coming out and chatting with me tonight. If you ever want to do this again, just let me know. I mean, I do these weekly.
Yeah, anytime. I'm happy to. Yeah, this is fun. Like I said, I used to do this weekly with the writers group, and
I like that.
Yeah, we'll be in touch, and we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, and if you ever do something like the writers group again, just make sure you let me know, because I would want to come and just join and at least listen, because I can't guarantee I have time to do the writing part of the writing group, but I have I could have my ear. My ear can listen.
We had people all the time. I said lurkers are totally welcome. If you don't write for it, you can still be on it. We're all just here, working and having fun, and certainly the people who wrote the submissions, they just like having an audience. So.
Yeah, well, perfect. Well, again, nice to officially meet you, and I hope we get to talk again.
Talk to you soon.
Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.